Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Steel Mint Engage, a 5-day webinar series which would cover a broad spectrum of topics. In the first session of the fourth day, we will be discussing on the ferroalloys market scenario. I am Ankita Chakravarti, analyst ferroalloys, host for the session. The topic for this session is changing fortunes for Indian ferroalloys industry. We are privileged to have Mr. Manish Sharda to address us today. Mr. Sharda is director at Sharda Group of Companies and very well known in the steel fraternity. Sharda Group is one of the leading producer and exporters of manganese alloys. In addition to this, Mr. Sharda is also the chairman of the Indian Ferroalloys Producers Association. Good morning, Mr. Sharda. It is my absolute honor to host you in today's webinar. Can we get any opening remarks from you, sir?
I think we are moment, and overall, I think the steel industry, the metal industry, the alloy industry is, after a long patch of time, having a good run, and simultaneously, we are seeing that all the raw material prices are also spiraling upwards. Unfortunately, the COVID situation is still continuing and persisting in bits and pieces in parts of the country. And we're just hoping and looking forward that we are going to see an end to this pandemic in the coming year. And that is what we are all hoping for, so that, the rapid pace of growth continues as we have seen in the last 4 or 5 odd months.
Absolutely, sir. And thank you, sir. Now we will begin with a brief presentation to set the context for today's topic, post which we will have a discussion with Mr. Sharda, followed by a few questions from the audience. Okay. So Indian ferroalloys prices have been increasing since November 2020 amidst increased global steel manufacturing. Although all alloys experienced record high prices, the growth in ferrosilicon has been much more substantial. If we look closely at the indexed graph, we can notice that there has been a sudden spike in the prices in the recent times since mid-September, after Chinese production cuts news resurfaced. In accordance with China's Paris Agreement pledge, the dual energy policy was put in place to restrict production from industries that have high power consumption and high carbon emissions. The policy presents a key step for China moving toward the carbon neutrality target. However, China's strict implementation of the dual energy control policy has adversely impacted Chinese production to the tune of 24% fall in ferroalloys production amidst an unprecedented power crisis not seen in the last 20 years. Chinese silicomanganese and ferromanganese prices have increased by 99% and 114% respectively year on year in October 2021. Ferrochrome prices up by 100% and ferrosilicon up by 200% during the same period. Now coming to the Indian market, the manganese alloys market saw significant hike in prices between March to June, as most producers had a healthy export order book. In 2021, the total exports of manganese alloys in the first 9 months are at the highest in 5 years and near to the yearly export figures as per Steelmint data. Manganese alloy prices followed ferrosilicon prices, which was the first to witness a sharp rise, as it is the most power intensive among all the alloys. Moreover, global production cuts in major manganese alloys companies like Ferroglobe Spain, OFZ Slovakia, and Nikopol Ukraine also gave a further boost to manganese alloys prices to reach record highs. Ferrochrome, on the other hand, unlike manganese alloys, is directly impacted by Chinese production cuts, and prices increased significantly during the period of May to August. During this period, major ferrochrome smelters in Inner Mongolia declared force majeure, as they were unable to fulfill their orders due to power issues. Meanwhile, we saw South African chrome ore and ferrochrome exports getting disrupted in July from Durban and Richards Bay Port due to political unrest. And thereby, imports from India improved in August. As China is the major buyer of Indian exports, the country getting dry of material seemed to be a boon for the ferrochrome smelters. However, some stainless steel mills reduced their production in September and prices started moving down, as China remained reluctant on importing higher priced ferrochrome. Thus, we can see the Indian ferrochrome exports dropped by 13% month on month in September. However, the increased stringent production cuts in China have elevated the spot prices in the country to around RMB 11,000 per ton. In rupees, it would be around 130,000 rupees per ton for 55% of chromium content. Ferrosilicon prices in India are up significantly from the start of the year due to supply issues in Bhutan amidst spread of COVID and power outages in Meghalaya, disrupting production by around 50%. However, once China started with its production cuts, international prices started spiraling upwards. As per Steelmint records, export increased from India in August and September, which enabled the producers to get higher realizations in the export market and eventually translate on into higher domestic ferrosilicon prices. Meanwhile, as the commodity is of high power intensive in nature, the European countries might see further production cuts amidst a global energy crisis, which might push prices up even further. Although the prices are all on the upside and the market is overwhelmingly bullish, there are some factors to keep a watch out for. Unavailability of coal and coke has driven up the prices to record highs, further increasing the power cost. Many plants have reduced their production on higher gas prices, like Ferroglobe Spain has shut their 2 furnaces, Nikopol Ukraine has cut its production to half, and OFZ Slovakia has also shut 4 out of its 7 furnaces on rising energy cost. Chinese steel production cuts might curtail the demand from China for ferrochrome and also lower ferrosilicon prices. Also, container unavailability and freight cost could hinder trade flow, and a huge chip shortage might lead to production cuts in the auto sector. That was for the presentation from my side. Before we throw the floor open on behalf of Steelmint, I would like to ask Mr. Sharda a few questions. So my first question to you, sir, is prices are now at historic highs. What are the major factors, according to you, is contributing to this hike now?
Yeah, as you already mentioned, the various plants being shut down and the various capacities being, reduced in various plants, whether it is OFZ, Nikopol, Ferroglobe. And the biggest cutback is from China in terms of alloy capacity. And these capacities which have been suddenly taken back, has led to a crisis because you are not seeing the global trade between a lot of countries happening. And these countries will be requiring alloys to produce their steel. So India becomes the only destination which is producing on almost full capacity right now. And that's why, because of the extreme shortage that we are seeing in Japan also, there were 4 smelters, out of which over a period of time, there are only 2 smelters which are running at low capacity. During winter times, what happens is we have seen that the power prices peak up in Korea, peak up in Japan, and also availability of power, in places like northern China, where there's a major capacity of alloys, is a little difficult. So people are experiencing shortages in terms of volumes in alloys, and that is one of the reasons why the prices have gone up. One of the reasons is also that the prices are going up on the background that raw material prices are also going up in terms of, coke and coal, because coal prices were at $50 of Indonesian coal, which is one of the largest imports in India. And captive producers today are importing coal at around $180 odd CIF Visakhapatnam port, or any other port for that matter. And the cost of captive generation has gone up to 9 rupees plus per unit of power. So these prices of raw material, which are spiraling up or has already spiraled up in the last 2-3 months, has pushed up the prices further.
Sir, as you also pointed out, and we also got from the market, that currently many smelters are getting this, that the captive power plant, the producers, those who have captive power plant, are having much more higher power cost than the one who are taking it from the grid. So how do you think that it will impact the production for ferroalloys market with the increasing raw material cost and power cost, and also the power crunch?
So in India right now, we are not seeing a major power crunch happening per se. I have not heard of any power crunch in terms of power outages, in terms of the alloy capacity. But definitely what I'm seeing is that if the coal and coke prices do not settle somewhere, we'll see further hikes in terms of alloy pricing. And we personally feel that there is improved situation of coal supplies from the government of India at the moment. And Coal India is trying to divert all the coals produced to the power plants, so that there is no power outages for industry or in the residential sector. But the price has to stop somewhere of coal and coke. And I think more or less for the moment, I think there is a stabilization factor which has come into play for the pricing of coal and coke. So I don't see the prices moving up very sharply now, unless these coal and coke prices, again hit the roof with, the weather playing dirty out there in northern China, in Australia,
Yes, sir. Sir, also given the fact that ferroalloys production is power intensive in nature, what should be the ideal power tariff structure the government should adopt to help producers retain their competitive edge?
So if you look at world over, the prices of power, where there's hydropower plants like Sarawak in Malaysia and Nordic countries, they have a power cost of somewhere around 2 rupees 30 odd paisa to 3 rupees 10 odd paisa per unit of power. Whereas in India, if you look at the average power cost across all states, leaving the hydropower plants, the thermal power generation cost, which is levied to the ferroalloys industry, is roughly on an average basis 5 rupees 50 odd paisa. Barring only DVC power, which is I think at around 4 rupees 50 paisa for the power plant, for the ferroalloys plants which are connected on DVC power. So all in all, if you look, that we are almost double the cost of power compared to the global players in the world market. And in India, if the government looks at it, they need to see how they can manage to give us power which is almost at par with the global players in the industry, or maybe a little higher, so that we have some kind of a leverage to be present in the global market on a continuous basis.
And sir, also one more thing is that ferroalloys exports to European countries have been particularly significantly high. Like in 2020, total exports to European countries stood at 69,554 tons, while in 2021, exports reached to around 103,973 tons in the first 7 months. What are the factors that are driving the exports to European countries?
So it's very clear. You have started off with your presentation saying Slovakia and Ferroglobe all have cut back productions, and we've seen the steel market, in a very strong phase for the last couple of months. And when the capacities of steel increase, the requirement of ferroalloys also goes up. Whereas the European producers were not able to, supply those tonnages in the European steel market, and the consumers were grappling with shortages in terms of alloy capacity. We also saw a lot of alloy capacity being shut in the Ukrainian region, the Georgian region, and the supply issue led to this upsurge of exports from India. Because a few years back, India was one of the largest suppliers to the European continent as well. But then we saw that the producers in Europe and the Nordic countries were able to meet and supply the demands of the European customers in terms of alloys, which suddenly was, in a short supply situation because of the production cutback. And one of the main reasons is because of these plants being out of production in terms of the capacities, India was able to cater to those demands and needs, because India, as you know, is having a far greater capacity than the demand, than the domestic demand in terms of production of alloys.
Okay. And sir, also the PLI scheme, which was recently announced for specialty steel, how do you think it would be benefiting the ferroalloys industry?
So, unfortunately, the government has not given the PLI scheme to the ferroalloys industry. So, we do not have that advantage or leverage in terms of the PLI scheme which is there.
But sir, would there be any increased demand from the special steel sector if there is increased production for special steel?
So all steels basically require ferroalloys. Any steel demand going up, whether it is normal MS steel or special steels, alloy steels, the overall demand of alloys will go up if the production of stainless steel, mild steel, and special steel goes up.
And sir, this past year, ferroalloys industry has observed good sale price and volumes. So is there any expansion plan proposed by the ferroalloys industries in India? Would we see much more production in the coming years?
See, we already have a good enough capacity installed for meeting out the domestic demand after even exporting. There is no dearth in terms of supplies of ferroalloys industry to the domestic steel industry. We have enough capacity, and there are expansions which are happening in various pockets. And there was a couple of plants which were shut down. They have restarted again because of the good sales prices and the viability being there in the sector. So a lot of plants have actually restarted. And one of the examples is that Modern India Concast was sold recently to one of the Calcutta-based groups. Then there was another plant which was taken over, that is Rohit Ferrotech in Visakhapatnam. So all these plants will be coming online, and within a matter of months, and we'll see that the capacity is increased. We are expanding in Visakhapatnam with one furnace. Couple of other plants are expanding. So there will definitely be expansion. As steel industry also expands, the ferroalloys industry will also expand. And we will be able to cater to both the domestic demand as well as the global demand which is there for ferroalloys industry. See, one has to accept that India, with all its difficulties, with all its constraints, the ferroalloys industry is a very unique industry which has been going on for such a long time in terms of global supplies. And it's a very proud thing for the Indian ferroalloys industry that we have been one of the largest silicomanganese exporters, seaborne exporters in the world. And because of the power tariff in this country being so high, we lag behind a bit. Otherwise, compared to China, we have no less efficiencies, we have no less quality, and we are quite capable to supply to every single steel industry user in terms of quality and also in terms of our efficiencies in production.
Definitely, sir. And sir, do we see any export demand coming in from China due to their production cuts and which is
Yes,
intensifying?
yes, very much. There have been a lot of inquiries from China, and a good amount of supplies have also been done in the past 2 months to China.
Okay. So that means we will see another hike in the prices.
I'm not sure if we are going to see another hike in terms of the prices, unless the raw material prices and the power prices are increased, or we are seeing a power shortage or outage for the ferroalloys industry.
Okay.
But the
And sir,
demand is very robust.
definitely. Yes, sir. And sir, what are the key challenges other than power, which the ferroalloy industry is facing in India right now?
So power is a main challenge, but apart from power, we are always facing, like our chrome industry always faces problem of low phos, ultra low phos coke, which most of the coke producers in India are not able to deliver, and the pricing of the coke also is quite substantial in India compared to the international pricing, let's say from Colombia or from the European producers. And also we have issues in terms of high grade manganese ore, and we are majorly importing our high grade manganese ore from countries like South Africa, Australia, and Gabon. So these are the basic two issues which always are there, like the power cost, which is already there, but most of the plants are connected on the grid. And right now, the coal prices being so high, in fact, the people who are connected on the grid, or the plants who are connected on the grid, are having a better time than the people who have their own captive power plant, because the captive power cost is very, very high. The coke issue is a big issue, where we have a duty structure in place for Chinese coke and Australian coke, which I think should not be relevant to the ferroalloys industry, or should not be levied on the ferroalloys industry, as we don't require the prime lumpy coke. What we normally use in the ferroalloys industry is the undersize of the lumpy coke, which is 10 to 30 mm or 6 to 18 mm. For smaller furnaces, we use 6 to 18. For bigger furnaces, we use 10 to 30 mm, which is basically the undersize of the prime coke. And there is a duty on coke which is not required, or which should not be implied for the ferroalloys industry. And I think the government should try and look and remove this for the industry, as the coke requirement itself and the sizing itself is very different compared to the steel industry.
Okay. So now we shall take up questions from the audience. So we got one question from here, from our audience, is what would be the cost per ton of manufacturing silicon magnesium basis the current input cost?
I honestly have no idea about silicon magnesium. I can, tell you about silicomanganese, ferromanganese, but I really cannot tell you about silicon magnesium, as we don't produce this.
Okay, so moving on to our next question. So we have another question. The audience wants to know, we were observing the coal prices and we saw the prices are getting lower from past few days after Chinese government intervention in coal trade market. Do you see ferroalloy prices to getting lower too?
I don't think so. The ferroalloy prices are going to go lower at the moment or in the coming 2 months, as there is a strong and a very robust demand in the international market as well as domestic market, as everybody is producing more than what they are producing in terms of the steel production that we are seeing. Steel production is also, the plants are running almost full capacities now across the globe. Since China has cut back production, people are aware that Chinese export will be filled by all the other producers in the global marketplace. So I don't see that there is a pricing pressure on ferroalloys. In fact, if at all the prices might go up.
Sir, based on this only, we have seen some corrections in the futures prices from China. So how do you think would it affect the prices, like the export prices from India?
Basically, the exchange in China is an internal exchange. It does not cover the global marketplace, and I'm not sure how and what goes on in China. As you know, we are not aware about the full details of the index operations in China. But mostly, what we look at is the index of CRU, Metal Bulletin. All these indexes are pretty strong and pretty robust at the moment. So that Chinese internal index for their country does not apply to the global markets per se, since they've cut down on production. I have no idea as to how that index works.
Okay. Sir, we got one more question. What is the current cost of silicomanganese production and what was it 3 months back?
The current cost of silicomanganese production? I think the silicomanganese cost of production for 6516, 6517, as there are different grades, would be roughly around 110,000 to 112,000 rupees.
Okay. And sir, also, for how much time can we expect these prices of ferroalloys to sustain these higher prices?
I think I would not like to predict a very long-term view, but in the short-term view, I think for the next 3 to 4 months, the prices do not look to go down.
And sir, being importer and trader of manganese ore, are the prices of manganese ore going to hike?
See, the overall manganese ore supply situation globally is, not short. In fact, we have seen a new mine which is coming in South Africa with a production of 2 million tons. So there might be slight increase in terms of the pricing of manganese ore because of the, the production cost going up in terms of energy prices, because energy prices going up affects everyone's production cost. What we are seeing is that there are a huge increase in terms of the bulk freight rates and container freight rates, what we have seen in the past few months. And this has led to a slight increase in terms of the pricing of manganese ore as well. But I do not see a very big, spurt in terms of manganese ore pricing because of the supply situation being oversupplied at the moment.
And sir, how do you think the freight issue will play out with the current export situation? Like, will it create a good hindrance?
The freight markets have been very bullish, have been very strong because of global trade and also because of some congestion at Chinese ports and US ports. What we have seen is that new ships have not come in the last two years, almost 2 years, because we had this pandemic. So production was impacted in terms of new ships. What we are seeing is that unless the energy and the crude oil prices come down, we are not seeing a weakness in terms of the freights as well.
Sir, but how do we ascertain the prices of freight? Because the prices of freight has also been increasing exponentially. So how is the realization coming in for the export trades?
So what has happened is that the CIF contracts have been converted into FOB contracts in terms of the freight, and whatever freight is there at actuals on that particular day is applicable. So either the buyer has to absorb that, or either the seller has to absorb that, keeping in mind that the freights are going to be different for different routes. And there are certain routes which are very, very expensive. There are certain routes which have, stayed stagnant at that point of time. So basically, the sales which were happening in CIF basis, most of the guys have de-risked it and said that we'll be doing FOB sales, or if we do CIF sales, then we'll be able to only tell you the freight once we receive the freights, confirmed freight from the carriers.
Sir, one more question we got, although it was asked earlier as well, but everyone wants to know what was the production cost 3 months back for silicomanganese.
So if you look at 3 months back, we were selling somewhere between 85,000 to 92,000. 3 months back, the prices were hovering at that price, and at that time the production cost was far lower because of the coke and the coal prices. But if I correctly remember, 3 months back, the prices for the cost of production for silicomanganese would have been somewhere around 60 to 62,000, 63,000 to be more precise, depending upon different plants and different locations. Anywhere from 61,000 to 64,000.
And sir, what are the current production prices, production cost?
I just mentioned to you that the current production cost must be somewhere around 110 to 115,000.
Okay. So, well, I think that was the last question we could accommodate for this afternoon. Due to time constraints, we have to bring this session to a close. Again, a big thank you to our speaker and viewers for joining in. And we do hope you all enjoyed the session. Also, we would like to extend our gratitude to our sponsors, NMDC, Tata Steel, and Rungta Steel for all their support. We also thank Indian Steel Association and Steel Users Federation of India for their valuable support.